Welcome to Joyride with Expatriates. In our show, we bring every month a different person who either was or is an expatriate and is willing to share their stories with us to inspire us to take action, to pursue our dreams and our goals. Hi, I'm Tatyana Fittipaldi. I'm a change management strategist and a certified professional coach, and in this channel, we make videos to help leaders, multicultural professionals, and expatriates improve their productivity, their effectiveness, and overall leadership, both in business and in life. If that sounds for you, hit that subscribe button now. Today, we're going to talk to Maria Helena Dunne. Maria Helena is a successful realtor at Keller Williams. She has over 7 years of experience in the American real estate market. She just recently won the Top 10 Producer Award from the Ridgewood office. She is a very sought after realtor, especially in the Brazilian community. And she is a leader in creating expatriates support group here in the East Coast of the US. She's a mom of 3 and she has been a loving wife for 19 years. So without further ado, let's welcome Maria Helena Dunne. Maria Helena, welcome.
Thank you, Tatyana. Thank you for inviting me to this show. I feel very honored.
It's our pleasure to have you here. It's our pleasure. Thank you so much. So basically, as I mentioned to you, this show is about talking with expatriates and hearing about a little bit about their stories, and I feel a little bit inspired about their stories. So thank you so much for sharing your story. I am curious to know, tell us a little bit, where did you come from? What did you used to do in your original country? Tell us a little bit about that.
Okay, so I come from São Paulo, Brazil, and I used to work for United Airlines in the sales department. I was a corporate account executive, and basically I visited corporate accounts and I signed contracts with them for their employees to fly with United Airlines all over the world. So that was my my job, and I've been here in America for 21 years now.
Wow, 21 years is a lot of time. So you probably right now feel a lot more adjusted.
Definitely.
So what drove you to move from Brazil to the US?
United Airlines was looking for Latin American account executive for the office in New York, and I applied for the position, and I got the position in 1999, and they transferred me here. So at the time I was single, so it was kind of an easy transition. I think it's more difficult for people who have, who are married with kids, but that's how I ended up here. I applied for a position and I got the position in New York for the New York office.
Awesome. That's an interesting story. I imagine this happens with a lot of people that are relocated and become expatriates. So tell me, what are you doing right now? What is your job, and what kind of things do you do right now?
So right now I work as a realtor for the past 7 years.
A very successful realtor.
Prior to that, I stayed home with my kids for 9 years. So I worked for United Airlines, and then I worked at the Brazilian Embassy in Washington, D.C. as the manager for the Brazilian Tourism Office. And then after I had twins, I decided that I wanted to stay home. And then I had a third one 25 months later. So I definitely stayed home for 9 years taking care of my kids. Because, it's different in Brazil. We have family support, we have babysitters, maids that help us. But here in America, you are by yourself. So with 3 little kids, there was no way I could go back to work. So I decided to stay home. And then I had a friend who lived in Manhattan, and she asked me suggestions where she should buy her house in New Jersey, because I was living in New Jersey at the time. And I said, well, that's the town that you should go. And then I started looking at houses with her. And then 2 months later, a friend of hers, so she bought a house, $1 million house. And then 2 months later, a friend of hers from Manhattan also bought another $1 million house. And I told my husband, like, wait a minute, I'm helping all these people to find their houses here. I could maybe become a realtor and work with the Brazilian community and help people, to navigate the different towns and counties in New Jersey and try to make some money for our kids' college, because here in America, college costs a lot of money. So that's what I've been doing the past 7 years. I've been working as a realtor, and that's how I transitioned from travel business to stay-at-home mom to real estate.
That's actually amazing. Like, to have a mindset to see the opportunities when they present themselves. That's really amazing. I commend you, because sometimes expatriates, they're so overwhelmed that they might not see an opportunity when they present itself. So congratulations that you took the chance. Yes. and made it happen. That's awesome. So tell me, what was the most significant change of mindset you had to have in order to adjust here in the country?
So as I said, I've been here for 21 years. So a lot has changed in my life. But so when I moved here, as I mentioned earlier, I was single. So I was working like crazy, because you if you're a transfer, you have this responsibility to show the work, to prove to them that they made a right choice of bringing you from another country and taking care of your papers and everything. And one of the things that I remember thinking was very different from Brazil is that at lunchtime in Brazil, you go out for an hour, and then you go to a restaurant, or you go in those restaurants that you eat by weight, and you have like an hour break, and you chat with your friends from the office, and then, sometimes on Friday nights, or even sometimes during the week after 6 o'clock, everybody's still in the office, and they're like, oh, let's have a beer, and then go for a happy hour.
Yeah.
And when I came to America, it was the same company. It was United Airlines. It was a different job, because I was dealing with, Latin American ethnic market. It was not corporate. But the office itself was very different, because Americans, and I shouldn't generalize, but in my office at the time, everybody ate on their desks in front of their computers. They would bring a salad from home, or they even go down and buy lunch, but they would come back and eat in front of their computer on their desks. And I thought I couldn't get someone to go out with me and sit at Bryant Park, which was close to the office. I used to work on 6th Avenue, very close to Bryant Park. And like those beautiful days, and people just sit in front of their laptops or computers and eat from in front of that. And that was something that in the beginning was kind of weird for me, and not having the happy hour, and I didn't know anybody, and people in the office. By like 4:45, I would stand up from my cubicle, and there was nobody in the office, because most people that worked in my office, they were commuters to New York or even New Jersey, so they had a train to catch or a bus. And I was lucky enough to rented an apartment in the Upper East Side. So I felt very lonely in the beginning. That was something that I had to adapt. It's like, okay, that's how it is here. So
that's quite interesting, and it's quite a difference in culture. So you can you saw at firsthand some of the differences in small aspects that we usually don't think about, right? So and besides that you had to have a change of mindset, you had to start working more in your desk, or having lunch alone. What was one of the biggest challenges you had when you came to the US?
I really think the biggest challenge at the time was, I mentioned before, I felt lonely. I felt very lonely in the beginning. I think if I had moved with a husband and kids, I think the transition would have been a little bit easier for me, not necessarily for my kids and my husband, but I think I felt very lonely in the beginning. And because I was working so many long hours, I didn't even have time to do something fun, So for for several months, I was just working and feeling lonely. So it was not easy at the beginning. So that was a challenge to, how could I overcome this, and how could I find time to maybe do some of the stuff that I used to do in Brazil and maybe make friends in America, you know? So that was, how could I, that was the challenge, find a balance that I could have life and at the same time be good at work and prove to them that they made the right choice of bringing me from Brazil to be, you know, the Latin American manager for, you know, for Latin American accounts.
Yeah, this balance is something that many expatriates report having, you know, this dual between proving themselves, but also, you know, basically having a life. And how did you overcome this big challenge?
So, you know, after a couple of months that I got into a routine and I had all my accounts set up, I started looking to do things that I used to do in Brazil. So I started, you know, going to a yoga place and I started doing yoga, and I used to do meditation in Brazil. So I looked for a meditation center. And once I started to try to replicate the good things that I had in Brazil here, I started meeting people. And then in the meditation group, I met a Brazilian, and then, you know, she introduced me to her Brazilian friends. And then a couple of months later, I had my own tribe. I had my Brazilian tribe in Manhattan, you know. So I still didn't have, I was not much in touch with the people from my office. As I said, they, you know, most of them were married with families, and 5 o'clock, everybody was out of the office. But then I had found my tribe, you know, my Brazilian friends through this friend that I met through meditation at the time.
And it's always easier to go through anything when you have, you know, friends and you have other people to support you, other people around you, right?
Yes, definitely.
Absolutely. So you mentioned, I think you mentioned a little bit about, you know, this fear of balance, but do you want to tell more about this fear, and how did you overcome this fear of, you know, having to prove yourself here in the US?
Yeah, that was definitely my biggest fear, because, you know, they transfer you and you're always worried, oh, you know, you're not doing a good job, so they might send you back to your country any minute now. And I remember when I moved here, my mom was like, let's buy an apartment. And I'm like, I'm not going to buy anything. I don't know if I'm going to last here, you know? So I think it's, you know, you start getting, you know, basically my work was sales. And once the sales start showing up and my territory that I was in charge start, you know, showing improvement in the sales, I start breathing like better. I was like, okay, this is doing well. You know, the accounts that I'm in charge are selling more, and I'm guaranteeing my job here. So, and as I said, at the same time, I was making friends. So I was feeling more confident that this was permanent. There was not something that could change overnight.
So you mentioned a little bit about confidence and also, you know, some of the balance. I was wondering, I'm very curious to know, what do you think about what skills expatriates have to have in order to adapt when they come to a new country?
I think the most important thing when you come to a new country is try to not be afraid of speaking the language if you're not fluent. Because sometimes, like, I work for United Airlines in Brazil, and I thought I was fluent. I had lived here before. But when you get to the country and you start working, there is so many, you know, you don't feel like that your English is the level that it should be, or any other country that you go. So for a while, I was kind of reluctant to be speaking too much. And then I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to let my tongue go and speak as much as I can and learn from my mistakes. So I think, you know, not being afraid of speaking, even if your English is not perfect. I think trying to learn, I knew a lot about American culture, but because I had been here for so many trainings with United Airlines before, you know, when I was in Brazil. But you never really see the culture until you really live it, you know, get here, you know. So as much as information as you can have about, you know, the culture that you're moving into, I think it's important. And I also think that not in my case because I was the one transferred, but for a lot of, I work with a lot of Brazilian families who are relocated from Brazil here. And I see that the kids go to school and they make new friends, and, you know, whoever was transferred, either, you know, the wife or the husband goes to the job, and the spouse that stays at home is the one that suffers the most because doesn't have a social life, doesn't have a work, or, you know, and the kids are in school. So I think one of the things that if I was transferring with a family here that I would do, if I had to stay home, I would volunteer in the school that my kids are, volunteer at the library, volunteer even in a hospital. Obviously not right now, but, you know, with what's going on. But I think volunteer work is the best way for you to get to know the culture, get to know how people are, improve your language, English in this case, and not have a commitment because it's a volunteer work. So you volunteer those hours, but if something happening, you cannot go to that volunteer work in those specific hours. It's volunteer. So it's not like you have a boss that's going to tell you, oh, you know, you're fired because you didn't show up. So I think if the people develop this, you know, not being afraid of speaking wrong and learn as much as you can about the culture and volunteer, if you are the spouse that stays home, that's the best way to adapt to the new country.
That's a beautiful summary of what you just said. So English, make sure you know local people and the local language, and then volunteer, make some, you know, some friends. Awesome. I think these are awesome tips, Maria Helena. I truly think these are great tips that really help people adjust faster. That's awesome. So you talked a little bit about your meditation story and some stories already, but I would like you to share a story that's something that happened while you were here that helped you adapt faster here when you came.
I don't think was exactly when I came, but there was something that happened later on when I was here that really helped me. So I came in 1999, and then I got married, and in 2001 I moved to Virginia, and that's when I worked for the Brazilian embassy. And then when I had my twins, I was part of a group called Fairfax Mother of Multiples, and they had, you know, play dates, they had, you know, girls' night out for the mothers. It was like, it was a group that had activities that, you know, the glue of the group was the fact that we had multiple kids, you know, like 2, 3, whatever. There were people in my group that had 5 kids at once. So, so when I started participating in this group, I thought, you know, what if I create a group that the glue, instead of being multiple kids, is, you know, the parents, the mother is Brazilian. So at that time, I knew about five women that had kids and were Brazilians. One was from my yoga class. The other one was from the Brazilian embassy. A third one was, we had the same cleaning lady in common. So that's how I met her. Anyway, so I had a tea. I even remember the date. It was 18th of August of 2004. And we had a tea in my house. And I said, let's create a group of Brazilian mothers where we can not only, you know, have the play dates in Portuguese, but, you know, have Brazilian parties, you know, like the Festa Junina, which is the June party that we have, or our Independence Day, which is in September, or a Christmas party with a Santa Claus that speaks Portuguese. So I founded this group in Virginia, which was MBV, Brazilian Mothers of Virginia. And then that was in 2004 when I had my twins. And then in 2007, I had to leave Virginia because my husband got a job in New York, and we transferred, we came back to New York again. I was in New York, I went to Virginia, and then I came back again. And then for 1 year, I was really having a hard time because I had a community in Virginia. I had my friends, my kids had their little friends, you know, and it was very, very hard. But then in 2008, I decided to have another group of mothers, that this time in New Jersey. And right now I do have this group. And, you know, the kids that were little at the time now are teenagers. So we have a subgroup in this group, which is the mothers of teenagers. And, you know, I organize 5 parties a year, and we have girls' night out, and we do We organize a lot of events to get money and send to institutions in Brazil, orphanages. Like this year, we are helping a boat that goes along the Amazon River and helps families there with medication, with, you know, the doctors come. So I needed to find a community of Brazilian mothers, and I couldn't, so I founded one. And you have to think that was in 2004, when Facebook and all this, you know, that we have nowadays is much easier to communicate and to find people, you know. So the group started very, very small, you know, as I said, with 3-4 families at the time, and it just kept growing. And I'm very happy to say that the group is still alive in Virginia. You know, they still do things there, and I have my group here, and I do things here. So if you don't have a tribe, create your tribe.
Great one. That's a power tip. I love it. That's a power tip. That's very powerful. So my next question would be exactly about the support groups that you have, and you mentioned this group that you founded yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So tell me, maybe tell us a little bit how this group supports you in your daily life and daily activity.
So we say that it takes a village to raise a child, and I actually have 2 villages. I have the village of Oradell, which is the town that I live in, New Jersey. And for a very long time, this village was essential for my surviving, because I had 3 kids doing 3 different activities after school. And then we share, you know, it's carpools that we do, okay, you take today to swimming and I'll take tomorrow to soccer, you know, and so that was a community that I had, a tribe that I had, that village that helped me. But then I had my Brazilian village, which was my Brazilian tribe, that I, you know, during the weekends, I'm always hanging out with the members from my group, because I don't have family here. My husband is from England, so he doesn't have family here. So the group was, and I think it is still nowadays, a support for, it's the family that we don't have here. So it's not a group, I don't have a group that has like 500 people and nobody knows, you know, each other. We know each other. So, you know, if someone, like a couple of years ago, we had someone in the group that the husband passed away. So we were doing, like, every night there was someone bringing food to them. Or, you know, we just had someone who had a baby recently in the group, and we also arranged to have food, you know, brought to the person. So it's basically giving the support that a family would give to us in Brazil, and we don't have it here, especially people who are relocated and they don't know anybody. So when they get to my group, you know, they come and they have the girls' night out, and then they get to know some of the girls, or come to, you know, Easter party, and then they know the other families, and then they connect with these other families based on sometimes location, you know, we live close to each other, sometimes it's the age of the kids. But basically, the idea of the group is to give emotional and even physical support that we don't have here, because our family is in another country.
Yeah, that's a beautiful awareness, because indeed most expatriates, they come and they don't have anybody, they don't have a family. Their parents are probably in their original country, and usually family is very supportive in many places, and having a support group like that could fill this gap, it's incredible indeed. That's also another interesting power tip. I love that. So we are coming almost close to the end of the session. So I was wondering if you could share some other power tips you have for expatriates out there that, you know, want to adapt and want to make adjustments in their life so that they can feel comfortable living in a different country.
I don't know if there's anything different from what I already said. You know, it's just, you know, having the set, you know, if you're coming to a country, you have to adapt, you have to be flexible, and you have to be open to get to know other people. Try to, if there's something that you love doing in your country, like I was never a book club person, but I have someone in my group now that she loved to she loved book clubs when she was in Brazil. So she started her book club here. So basically try to bring things that you love from your country and to adapt it here. And that's a way for you to not feel so far away. I don't know if that makes sense.
No, it makes sense. So sometimes we come here and we don't have that's very synchronistic. You'll see why soon. We don't feel the sense of belonging. Sometimes it feels like we are, a fish out of the bucket of water. We don't know where we fit. So it's a very, very indeed a very interesting tip. So here at the end of our interview today, I wanted to mention that Coaching Expatriates will soon launch a deck of cards. It's a deck for self-growth and self-improvement. It's an awesome deck. And so I would like to test it out with you. Is that okay?
Yes, sure.
So here's how it's gonna work. I am going to share my screen with you with one card, and that I selected for you, and way before our interview today. And I wanted you to read this card and tell me how what you read relates to your adaptation experience when you came to the US. Okay?
Okay, let's see.
Okay, so let me share the screen with you. So this is the back of the card.
Okay, you are the master of your mind. Change your mindset, change your life.
So, and here is the card.
I decide who comes into my life and stays. I'm in control of my life. Right souls are attracted to me, so that I always have loving and trustful relationships around me. Give me a couple of minutes to think about it. Yeah, that is interesting. So as I said, when I moved here in New Jersey in 2007, for 1 year I was literally depressed. I was very sad, and I had this neighbor across the street who would take me to all the playgrounds. She's like, "Oh, I'm going with Rachel to this playground in Paramus. You want to come with me?" And I would go with her. And then one day she knocks at my door. I don't remember how many months I was already here. And she says, "I met this woman in the playground in Paramus, and she has an accent just like you." And I asked her if she was Brazilian, and she said she was. So I got her phone number for you, and then she gives me this little piece of paper with the name Carla and the phone number written down. So I decide to make a call to this Carla, and I called and I left the following message. I said, "Hi, Carla, my name is Maria Helena. I moved here from Virginia, and my neighbor just gave me your phone number. She met you in a playground, in a park in Paramus. And I was just wondering if you want to be my friend, because I don't have friends here." That was literally the message I left for her. And this person, Carla, became my very best friend, my sister, my soul sister. And to a point that with this COVID thing, my husband and I, we decided to do our wills recently, just in case, And on the will, if both of us die, we were like, who do we leave our kids? Because my mother, I don't have family in Brazil with the exception of my mom, and she's 72. So doesn't make any sense to have my mother in charge of my kids. And my husband's family is in England. So it's like, if we die right now, who would take care of our kids so that change in their lives is not so drastic? And then Carla became this person. And she came to me through my neighbor in a little piece of paper. And I just had the courage to make the phone call and see where we would go from there. And
that's fascinating. That's absolutely fascinating.
So I decided she was going to stay in my life forever. And I'm glad I did that. So. And
the right souls are attracted to you. That's beautiful. That's absolutely beautiful. That's awesome. Maria Helena, your story is very inspiring. I think you shared very powerful tips, very, very powerful story. I am really, really glad that I had the opportunity to talk to you today in this in our Joyride with Expatriates today. I am very, very thankful to you for you being here. Thank you so much. I really, really appreciate you being here. Thank you so much for sharing your story.
Thank you for inviting me and letting me share my story. I hope that, you know, what I said makes people more less afraid of trying new countries and less afraid of calling people that you don't know and just saying, I need a friend, like I did, you know, and not, you know, and if you don't have, if you cannot find your tribe, create your tribe. And I'm happy you invited me, because I really hope this helps people who are moving to any country to find their tribes and adapt as quick as possible. And thank you for inviting me again. Thank you.
Thank
It was
you.
a pleasure.
So much. Thank you.
Thank you.